So I wanted to build a mod that doesn't look like a mod. Welcome to Lume Shop, my name is Eric, and today we're going to take a look at another high-end custom Seiko mod. So I wanted to create something that looks like it came out of the Seiko factory. So all of the parts had to complement each other really well, very much like my high-end custom Hydro mod. I also wanted to build a high-end custom piece that represents my channel well. Some of the characteristics that I was looking for was rarity, high-end components, and cool factor. Basically, it should be a watch that I think Seiko should have made themselves with a touch of my own creativity. To begin, I want to talk about what a high-end mod is. Now, I spoke in great length about what a high-end mod is in my Hydra feature video, which you can watch by clicking the link right there somewhere. But to put it short, it's basically a mod that uses really nice components, so high-end parts that are both rare and possibly expensive, and it brings exclusivity to its owner. It can also be seen as a mod that can't easily be reproduced, whether it's due to the difficulty in obtaining the parts or difficulty in the actual build process. So this whole high-end mod series started off with my desire to create a custom piece for myself. Being exposed to so many of custom mods, whether it's from my own creation or customer orders, I have admittedly become a little bit desensitized to some of the designs that I handle. Thus, in order to come up with a build that really spoke to me, I needed to make a watch that really one-upped all of the projects that I've done before. And before anyone asks, I did make two more versions of this watch right here, which is hiding under my cuff. If anybody wanted to purchase this, because I usually get emails requesting the same build to be made again in case someone wanted to buy it. I'll get into more details about the two that are for sale at the end of the video, so make sure you stay around for that. So enough talking, let's change perspective and look at the Seamaster 300. Just to get the details out of the way, here's a full quick breakdown of each of the parts that went into this build. So the movement is the original Seiko SKX013 caliber. The dial is an original dial from the discontinued SPDX017 Marine Master 300. The handset is also the original handset from the discontinued SPDX017 Marine Master 300. The chapter ring is a black brushed stainless steel chapter ring with loomed indices. The crystal is a clear AR double dome sapphire crystal with no bevel edge. The bezel is a 120 click coin edge bezel. The insert is a Lume ceramic bezel insert. The crown is a Lume signed S crown. The case is a limited edition CT701 case with functional helium escape valve. The case back is polished stainless steel. The bracelet is a Strapco Super Oyster bracelet with solid links and solid end links. And lastly, the clasp is the SPDX017 Marine Master 300 ratcheting diverse extension clasp. So I picked this movement because it is the highest quality caliber that can be attained directly from Seiko. A movement better than the 6015 is the 8035, but you can obtain this movement separately. The only way to get this movement is by purchasing a watch that houses this caliber, and there alone you're past the $2,000 price point, since the 8035 is basically an undecorated Grand Seiko caliber. Now, comparing movements that you can actually obtain from Seiko, I went with the 6015 over the more popular NH35 for three reasons: accuracy, build quality, and power reserve. When comparing the NH35 and more common 7S26 movement with the 6015, the 6015 has a different mainspring, adjustment lever, and barrel. The balance spring and mainspring in the 6015 are made from Seiko's specially formulated Sprawn 510 material, opposed to the Sprawn 5110 material found on the NH35. The difference in material makes the 6015 better suited to handle temperature and positional variations. It also allows the mainspring to unwind more uniformly than the mainspring found in the NH35. As for accuracy, the 6015 has better accuracy of -15 to +25 seconds a day, opposed to the -35 to +45 of the NH35. I'm fully aware that both of these movements can be regulated to run 0 seconds per day, but the 6015 has a tighter tolerance range. This means that the 6015 is more likely to keep better time even before any regulation. And lastly, the 6015 has a 50-hour power reserve opposed to the 40-hour power reserve found on the NH35, which is due to the improved material composition of the mainspring itself. So in general, the 6015 is the superior movement, both functionally and aesthetically. Unlike the 7S26, NH35, and NH36, the 6015 has a cottageny finishing on the rotor, believe it or not. So the dial I chose for this high-end build is the highly sought after and difficult to obtain SPDX017 Seamaster 300, which has been discontinued for quite some time and are well above $2,000 for a used and $3,000 for a new one on the Bay. So this is an original Seiko new old stock dial, not an aftermarket one, which opens the question of what are the benefits of using an original MM300 dial opposed to an aftermarket one. Well, first, it's that much more desirable to use an original part because of build quality and rarity. You can't find this dial anywhere. It took me quite some time to source these parts, and it's getting increasingly difficult because modding is getting more popular. The trade-off? It's going to be more expensive. Why I like original dials is because it makes the build that much more exclusive and luxurious. These SPDX017 dials are really well made, among the best dials I have ever seen and used. The polished indices are pristine, the text is super clean, and the lume is the best in the business. So everyone knows about Seiko's Lume. It's arguably the brightest and most long-lasting lume. But what people don't know is that there are actually two types of Lume. One, the older Lume found in models like the SKX, SRP, and Seiko 5s. And two, the newer Lume found in the premium Seiko divers like the SBBN025 Darth Tuna and the SPDX017 Seamaster 300. So this lume is typically found in Seiko divers that use better movements that are better than the 6015 like the 8035. Basically undegraded Grand Seiko calibers. The new Lume is incredible because it arguably glows 60% brighter and lasts longer than the standard Lume. So for this high-end Seamaster 300 mod, I wanted the best lume and the best dial construction quality, which would have to be the SPDX017 dial. This dial isn't a simple plug and play type of dial. There's a lot of work that needs to be done so that it can work on the 6015 movement and SKX style case. In short, this is the best dial you could possibly use for a Seiko mod. To match the quality, fit, and feel of the dial, it only makes sense to use the SPDX017 Seamaster 300 handset. It uses the same improved Lume, so it matches the dial perfectly when charged and uncharged. And the build quality is the best. It is made from substantial pieces of metal, not some thin sheet, and has tons of details incorporated into its design. The flats have a brushed finish, and if you take a look at the edges, they are chamfered and polished. So you have two types of finishing and two angles for light to reflect off of. It plays with the light incredibly because of the brushed flats and polished chamfers. This handset is not the typical aftermarket MM300 handsets you see from various producers. The lume on the aftermarket parts isn't half as strong nor lasts half as long as these original handsets. Plus, the aftermarket ones are completely flat with either an all polished or brushed finish, so you don't get the brushed flats and polished chamfering finishing. And just a detail that you can only know if you work with aftermarket and original MM300 handsets is that the aftermarket hands are really thin pieces of metal, which consequently don't allow a lot of lume to be applied. Since the material itself is so thin, the lume also has to be limited to a thin amount. Which is why I like the original MM300 hands, because the hands are thick, well constructed, beautifully finished, and allow substantial amounts of lume to hang onto the hands. The result? Really bright and long lasting lume. I forgot to mention in the quick breakdown that there is another added feature in this watch that's really cool. If you look at the date wheel, it's a typical black date wheel, but the numbers are actually loomed. So we have loomed numbers on the date disc itself. Now onto the chaptering, I went with brushed stainless steel finish in black PVD with loomed indices. I felt that polished would be too overpowering, plus brushed matches the finish of the handset. At a glance, you can't really see the brushing, which is what I wanted because I wanted to keep everything looking as uniform as possible. I also wanted indices on the chapter ring because the dial doesn't have any indication of individual minutes, so functionally it makes sense to have it on the chapter ring itself. As for the crystal, I went with double domed with clear AR, and I went with clear AR to allow the dial to stand out even more. The no bevel design also allows a seamless transition between the bezel insert and the crystal. For the rotating bezel, I went with a coin edge bezel because I felt it flowed with the design and feel of the dial and handset combination. The coin edge is subtle, yet provides enough character to keep the Seamaster 300 in line with the OEM Seiko look that I was going for. The oyster edge or Rolex style edge will be too aggressive for this design. The edges are nicely machined, so it provides comfortable traction when operating the bezel. As for the bezel insert, I went with a Lume ceramic bezel insert with indices and numbers evenly marked throughout. The goal was to keep everything looking as uniform as possible, and I didn't want the bezel insert to detract attention away from the face of the watch. The SKX style design of the insert also keeps everything looking close to an OEM Seiko aesthetic. As for the crown, I chose a signed S crown, and the etched S is filled with C3 Superluminova. There's nice contrast in daylight, but in the dark, the loomed S adds so much enjoyment to the watch. The coin edge design of the crown matches the coin edge bezel as well. And now onto the case. I chose the limited edition CT701 case, and I love how this is a limited edition case because it is chunkier than the typical SKX style case. It has the form factor of a Rolex Submariner case. The sides of the case are not as contoured, and I really like how the crown guards flow with the crown. These crown guards allow the crown to integrate into the case as if they were one single component. And of course, the addition of a functional helium escape valve is an added feature that increases the appeal of this case for me. And lastly, the bracelet and clasp combination is something that I've started to incorporate in all of my personal modifications. It's overkill for sure, but I wanted to tie everything together with the best possible clasp for Seiko watches, the SBDX001 clasp on a Strapco Super Oyster bracelet. The clasp has brush flats with polished chamfers, which match the brush flats and polished chamfers found on the handset. This clasp has solid closing and opening and very reliable action. There's zero play on the secondary lock, and the solid middle clasp is not bent steel. The solid end links and individual links are also held together by screw construction. And the main appeal of this clasp is the diverse extension, which allows for on-the-go adjustment without having to take off your bracelet for when your wrists swell up during the day. It's an extremely useful function that I love, and I use it on a daily basis with my other watches like my Hydra and my Rolex Submariner. I like this so much on the Hydra that I had to incorporate this combination onto the LM300. So that was the full breakdown of the Seamaster 300 mod. This is another addition to the high-end mod series that I've been doing. The last video was on the Hydra, but this one is the Seamaster 300. I really wanted something to represent my channel well, and being called Lume Shot, I decided to just make a watch that has the best lume on almost any watch that I've ever seen. And like I mentioned in the start of my video, this is my personal Seamaster 300 mod, but I always do get requests to make another version of this watch for them to own possibly. So ahead of time, I've made 2 more Seamaster 300 mods. Now the only difference between these two and my personal one is the case that's being used. So these watches use the CT703 case, which is also a limited edition case. It is more in line with the design and aesthetic of the traditional Seiko SKX, except these are limited edition and these feature helium escape valves. So these are functional helium escape valves as you see on the side of the case. The rest of the parts are identical to the mod that I just showed you. So the original Seamaster 300 hands, the dial, the loomed date disc, the loomed chapter ring, loomed ceramic bezel insert, and loomed signed S crown. So both of these watches are for sale if you are interested in picking one up. I'll have my email on the screen and in the description box below. And like I mentioned in my Hydra mod, these are high-end builds with pretty expensive components and rare components, so the prices may be higher than your typical standard Seiko modification. I also want to note that these two Seamaster 300 mods may be the only two I may ever be able to make and offer. The dials are really hard to find, and after searching for quite a bit, I wasn't able to find any more. And this was over a course of, I don't know, a few months, maybe a few years of hunting for these dials that I was able to come across 3. So these two may be the only ones I may ever be able to sell. So please do shoot me an email if you are interested. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is a really nice piece that I've been wearing for quite some time now, and I've been reluctant to make the video until now. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and I will see you guys in the next video.